Hello, welcome to episode 158 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 25th of March. So welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, some cross stitch, some bra making, one or two confessions. A few questions from the Ask Me Anything thread, and that is on Ravelry, but you can also email me on crafthousemagik@gmail.com. And last of all, I've just got some information on my shop update, which will be this Friday at 7 PM GMT. So you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry and Facebook, and I have my own website, Craft House Magic, where you can find all my hand-dyed yarns, handmade project bags, stitch markers, higher knitting needles and crochet hooks, as well as Clover crochet hooks and bag making supplies as well. So we have a make-along going on at the moment. That's both in the Ravelry group and on Instagram, and you can use the hashtag craft20aday on Instagram, and there's a special thread in the Ravelry group called craft20aday where we're basically doing a little bit each day on those longer projects, and it just chips away at them slowly, and actually before you know it you've done quite a lot of it. So do come and join in. I am planning on drawing for prizes next week for the first quarter of the Craft 20 a day make along, and I'm actually going to run the whole thing till the end of the year, and each quarter I'll be drawing for prizes. Next month I'll be starting a new make along as well alongside that one, and it'll be to do with shawls, so watch out for that. I'll be talking a bit more about that next week. So let's get on with the good stuff, shall we? Let's start with the knitting. I've got some finished mittens to show you, or fingerless gloves. And these were actually knitted by Adam's mum, because she's always likes to keep herself busy knitting things. These are knitted in Stranded Dyeworks, and it's her industrial Kingfisher colourway on her Paradise base, and it's basically 80% superwash merino, 10% nylon and 10% cashmere, and these are gorgeous. I love the way this yarn's come out. I think that this pattern is ideal to show off really beautiful yarns. It's taken about 60 grams of a skein, so great for a single skein project if you've got that left in your stash and you want to use something out of your stash. And I love these gloves because they've basically got open fingers and the thumb as well, but they fold over, so if you're getting a bit cold you can unfold it. I've just got these on my blockers that I got from Woodico, but I will show you them on my hand because I think you can see them a lot better, because they have this really cool ribbed bit down where the thumb is, which I just love. That's a lovely effect, and it just cinches it in nice and tightly over the thumb there, makes it feel really comfortable. So if you are a little bit chilly you can put the rib bit up and keep you nice and warm, but if you want to use your fingers just fold it down, and the same goes for the thumb as well. Liz said actually she didn't knit the thumb quite as long as it said in the pattern, and that is plenty long enough if you ask me. I don't suppose I've got a massively long thumb though, so you just have to play it by ear if you're knitting them for yourself. But I love these. I'm going to pop them both on, and I'll be able to use a little bit of that yarn to go in my Cozy Memories blanket, I think. I've had this yarn in my stash for absolutely ages, and I thought it's about time I used it and had something to wear. The cashmere base is nice and thick and plump, and that just feels so nice and cosy. I got Liz to knit the medium size, which was for a slightly larger hand than I have, but I just thought that it might be a little bit cozier having them slightly larger. I think it was ½ an inch larger than what my hand measures. But I do love how these mittens have come out. Definitely recommend that pattern. I should of course tell you what the pattern is. It is the Dream Fingerless Mitts by Marsha Healey, and I'll leave links in the description bar down below to both the pattern and the yarn as well. So those are the first finished object I've got to show you. Oh, I thought I'd mention as well that I've been popping all the projects that actually Liz has knitted as well on my Ravelry page, so that you can actually get information about each of the projects. If you can't remember what episode it's on, you can just pop to my Ravelry page and my project page and just have a look at the details of what yarn I used, etc. Or if there's any tips that I've thought, oh, that might be interesting to somebody else, I'll pop that in the notes as well. So I have another finished object, and this is what I've knitted. So I'm going to have to ask Barbara to come over to show you my next knitting project. Barbara! Thank you very much, Barbara. So Barbara is wearing my V-back tee that I've finished. As you can see, I'm intending to wear it with the V at the front, just because I like the V-necks. I love a V-neck, even though I'm sat here wearing a round neck top, but I really like V-neck tops and I want to make more. The original pattern says to have this as the front and then the V as the back. And I can kind of see why they definitely said about wearing the V at the back, because there is, if you've got a big bust and a sort of gap in the middle, the increase line sort of sits in the middle slightly. On me it's slightly better because my bust is a bit fuller than Barbara's. I will show you what it looks like with a twirl in the lounge after I've filmed this bit. But I just wanted to mention that first. So I actually knitted it so I had a few inches of positive ease. So I think I would recommend, if you are intending to wear it with a V at the front, to have sort of no ease or maybe negative ease if you like the look of that, because it just, there is extra room here just at the front, which if you don't like that, that could be a little bit annoying. I have blocked this and it has come out better, so before I blocked it, it seemed even more sort of gathered at the front here. But I think now it's blocked, I'm not too unhappy with it. I think I'm reasonably pleased with the shape. So the neck I did actually in a 1x1 twisted rib instead of the 1x1 standard rib that was called for in the pattern, and I just did a standard cast on rather than the tubular cast on that the pattern called for, just because I just didn't like how it was looking and I was a bit worried that it wouldn't be very stable around the neck. But I'm sure actually it probably would have been okay. I was just being a little bit overcautious, I think. So I did the same 1x1 twisted rib round the bottom of the top and on the sleeves as well. So I did 12 rows of twisted rib on the sleeves and on the bottom, and I did a few more on the top. I did the same amount of rows that the pattern actually suggested. But I thought that 12 was enough for the cuffs and the bottom as well. So you can see that on the back you've got a little bit more of the bottom colour showing. I've got the 3 colours that I used. There was one whole skein of each of these 3 colours, and the top one is a stranded Dyeworks in an Equinox colourway, and it's a BFL base. This one here is Hue Loco, and the Hue Loco yarn was called Robin's Egg, and that was a Stellina and Merino base. And then the bottom one here was a Hedgerow yarns called Zen Garden, and that was on a merino base as well. So I did mix the bases a bit, and I think that's absolutely fine. They were all fingering weight and they looked a very similar thickness, so that was fine. When I did my gauge swatch, I just used the first of the colours up here just to get started, and I think that the gauge is pretty similar all over, so that's fine. So the one thing that I think that I'm not as keen on is, rather than having sort of a raglan increases when you're doing, because this is a top-down sweater, the increases are actually dispersed over the whole sort of circle round the neck, and in some places I think you can sort of see where there's like a line of increases. So here for instance I can see a line where there's some increases there. So a raglan increase I think looks quite interesting, but I don't think you really want to see increases that are just dispersed over the whole top. Luckily this is quite a patterned yarn anyway, so it's not as obvious, but it's not something that I would want to do in a solid colour because it would show up a lot more. So I definitely think that I should have done either negative ease or no ease with this top sort of hanging like it does. I did see some evidence of this in some of the examples that have been knitted that were on Ravelry. But I thought, oh, I'm sure it'll be alright. I should have taken heed and thought, actually, if I just had it so that there was no ease at all around the bust, then at least that would sort of pull it out a bit more. But I'm reasonably happy now that it's blocked out. So it's a good way of using up single skeins in your stash rather than having them as sort of separate projects. If they blend together reasonably, you've then got a top. I had only literally about 2 grams left of this bottom colour left. I had about 5 grams of the centre colour and then about 18 grams of the top one. So I pretty much used most of the yarn that I had. When I actually finished knitting it, it was a little bit on the short side, but I knew that because it's a merino yarn, most of it, it will sort of stretch a bit. But now it's blocked, it's the perfect length. I really like it. So when I blocked it out, I actually blocked the front longer than the back to account for my bust area, because normally I'd add short rows around the bust so that you'd have a little bit more length on the front, so that it'd be an equal length at the front and the back at the bottom. With this one though, because you've got this V shape, you've then got these short rows at the back to make it an equal size at the front and the back. And I actually found that I only needed to do the first set of short rows to actually make it so that the front and the back were equal. So I just omitted that second group of short rows. So there we go. A finished t-shirt, and another one off my Make 9, which is always good. So Barbara will give you another little twirl, and then I'm going to pop this on and give you some twirls downstairs so you can see what it looks like on me, because Barbara's bust isn't quite as big. So there we go. Thank you very much, Barbara. So my next section is cross stitch. I haven't got a lot to show you, but I've started a new project. Well, sort of started. So I had this in my stash, and I think I purchased it at maybe the Festival of Quilts of 2 or 3 years ago. And it is for this really cute ice cream bookmark. And I was very tempted by these other bookmarks as well, but I thought I'll just get one. And I did start a few stitches on it when I first purchased it. It's a Michael Powell cross stitch arts bookmark, and it's called the Strawberry Ice Bookmark, reference BM011. But I will find the link to where you can get these from online, and pop them in the show notes in the description bar down below, and also on my website. I don't know if I'm really pleased about the way I've got this set up as yet. So this is a Q-snap frame with these plastic grabby bits at the side, and I've just got it attached at the bottom and the top, and I've started doing a little bit of this sort of centre portion of the ice cream. It makes me very hungry when I'm working on this. And I have my little needle minder from Chapelview Crafts there. I could probably have a go at stitching this in hand actually, because I've not really done a lot of that and might get into it a little bit more, but I have been using my stand at the moment. One of the things that I quite like about having a Lowery stand is that I could have it quite close to my face and then have 2 hands free to stitch with. But if I tried it in hand, I might be able to sort of go in and out in one action, so it might work out quicker. But I haven't messed around with my tension much, so we'll see. So that's all I've done of my bookmark so far, but I'm hoping to do this 20 minutes each morning now for the next, well, however long till I finished it. But I have been spending my 20 minutes in the morning working on my t-shirt to get it finished for the podcast today, because I really wanted to get that finished. So that's my cross stitch that I've started. I'm now going to talk about my bra making. So this weekend I spent a lot of time getting my bra from M&S, spreading the pieces out. Well, when I say spreading the pieces out, I basically got the bra out like this, and I was putting it onto a piece of paper and marking as best I could what the pattern pieces looked like on the piece of paper so I could duplicate it. So I literally would just getting the pattern pieces, and the cup, I suppose you could see very well, the cup is made of 4 sections, and you've got 1, 2, 3 here and then 1 at the top. So what I was doing is carefully spreading each of these sections out on a piece of paper, marking it, and then adding seam allowance. So most of the bra making, you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, except where you're having like an edge of a lacy edge, for example. So I made up this bra. Yes, it's very, very close to fitting me nicely. But it's pretty close, to be honest. It's not bad. It's better than a lot of bras I try on in Marks and Spencer's anyway. Normally you have to try on about 20, one fits. So the issues I've got with this one is that it is slightly big on the back band. When I've measured the pieces, I've obviously, because it's a bra that I've worn for a while, might have got overstretched a little bit, and then I've carefully tried not to stretch it, but when I've then traced it, I've obviously made it a little bit on the long side. So that is something I've got to adjust. I'm just going to take about ½ an inch off each side. So that's one thing I've got to do. I think that the bridge in the centre is a little bit narrow, so I'm going to make that slightly bigger. And the other thing that I did is that, because I've been watching Liz Sews, she was saying that she quite often uses a stretch lace with a cup liner underneath, a rigid cup liner, to give it strength. And she gets on all right fine with that, but I think because I've got quite a big bust, I need two rigid materials rather than having a stretchy lace on the top as well. So I'm going to use rigid lace and a rigid cup liner so that it gives it a lot more stability. It doesn't feel too bad, but when I've got it on, it just doesn't feel quite as nice and rigid and sturdy as the shop bought ones yet. So I'm just learning what fabrics that I like to use for my own bras. So I bought the rings and sliders off eBay in bulk, so I just used silver ones here. I got the strap elastic and the wire casing, either from Sewing Chest or the Bra Shop on Etsy. And the back, I've used a Powell net because that's nice and stretchy for the back, and then you want your cups to be rigid to give you a little bit of support. I will leave links to the two shops that I'd recommend purchasing from, but I'm getting there slowly. I think that I need to make a little bit of modification to this top cut piece, but I don't think it's too bad for my first sort of version of my copy of an M&S bra. So for the bridge and the sidebar here, I used a stretch satin with the cup liner underneath it because that doesn't need to be stretchy either. Some people like to have this bit stretchy, but it doesn't really matter either way. But the thing that needs to be rigid is the cup, which I'm relatively pleased with. I'm definitely not going to be modelling this, I'm afraid. I should get Barbara to put it on. I'll grab her and see if she'll wear it for me. Right, now Barbara's got it on. You could probably see it a little bit better, but I haven't put anything in the cup, so she's a little bit smaller than what my cup size is, but at least you get the idea of what it does look like. You can see that we've got the straps attached here. This was slightly different to the Black Beauty bra, as this band was sort of straight and then the straps just attached. I actually prefer this shape, I think. So I'm quite pleased with how that's come out. And then you can see the bra satin at the front and the lacy bit at the top. I haven't bothered stitching any bows on it yet because I wasn't 100% happy with the fit. Mum's really happy that the back band's a bit loose on me because she's slightly bigger. So she's already decided that this is going to be hers, bless her. But there we go. Bra number 5, I think. Still not 100% right, but I feel like I'm really on track now, copying a bra that I really like the fit of. Once I've got the fit of this one, I can then put this up against like the Black Beauty bra and make some modifications to that to make that really fit nicely as well, because I like some of the features of the cups on that. So linking into bra making that I've just talked about, I have some confessions and they're bra related. So I wanted to pick up some more things to make some bras with to get the perfect fit, and I got some underwire channeling. This is basically to put the wire in, and it's got a very soft backing so that when it's against your skin it's nice and soft. So I've got some of that, some really lightweight pico elastic to go on the top of the bra, some 12mm pico elastic to go at the bottom of the bra. I have some laces as well. So like I was saying, I needed some non-stretchy laces, so I picked up a few black ones, and I got this one, which I think is rather lovely. This one is quite cool because there's the left and right mirror images of these, and you get a piece of each, which is rather lovely. So I got one of those, and then I also picked up some other lace. This is more of a dense lace for a bra as well, so I can have a practice with the non-stretchy laces and see how I get on there. Oh, and I also picked up some bra cup liner, and this was from Sewing Chest. All these things were from Sewing Chest. So the last sheer cup lining I got was from the bra shop, and it was more sheer than this. So I just wanted to see what other places, what their cup liner was like. So I'm going to have a go with this one as well. That's a bit more of a, it looks a little bit more like a duoplex, but a lightweight one. So that's all the bra making stuff I got, and that was all from the Sewing Chest. I'll leave a link in the description bar down below to that shop. But then I was looking on Etsy, looking at the bra shop as well, but then I was looking on Elsa Fabrics, which also have, well, they have a website as well, but I happened to be looking on the Etsy shop version, and I was looking at this fabric. Now, I've had my eye on this for ages, and it said there was only 3 pieces left, so I thought, I'm just gonna have to get some. Otherwise I'll miss out. And it's a red and navy stripe fabric, which I just thought was really lovely. And I've just picked up a meter to make a t-shirt with, and that is a cotton jersey from Elsa Fabrics. And like, I can't just buy one fabric. So I bought 2 meters of this to make a Zadie dress, Tilly and the Buttons Zadie dress. So I did have this fabric in a pale turquoise background. I made the Joni dress from Tilly and the Buttons, the one with the turquoise background, and I thought actually that'd be really nice to have the one with the navy background as well. So I'm going to make either a Zadie dress or one of the other stretchy dresses out of this one, because everyone needs more floral stretchy dresses in their lives. And I've basically just replaced the sort of few meters of fabric that I made up in pyjamas last week, so obviously you have to maintain the stash, you know. So that is all my confessions, but I do have some questions from the Ask Me Anything thread. I have a few here, so I'm just going to see how I get on as to whether I do them all. So first of all, Susie was asking me, how do I avoid that sort of web-like effect underneath arms when you're picking up for stitches? So actually it actually comes that I did some sleeves this week, so I can show you how mine turn out. I wouldn't say this is my best version of an underarm, but it's not too bad. So to avoid having big gapy stitches, I tend to, when you're picking up stitches, make sure that you, if there's a big loopy stitch that you're picking from underneath, if you give it a twist and then knit through the back loop so that you tighten that up as you're going along when you're picking up the stitches, that helps. And then also, after you've finished, if you've got the end there that you've obviously started with once you've gone back to knit on the sleeve, what I tend to do is actually duplicate stitch over the back of the work to close those holes up, which I find is quite useful. I have a link to a Suzanne Bryan video where she goes through exactly what she does when picking up stitches for the underarm and makes a beautiful job of describing it. So I will put that link in the description box down below to help you. So I hope that helps, Susie. So the next question I have is from Katie. Now, I keep saying that I will get my wedding dress down from the attic, but I haven't. I'm so sorry, but I do have a list of tips that I feel like I've picked up from sort of sewing experience since I made my wedding dress. So I got married in 2017, and I did do a video of when I finished my wedding dress, and it's episode 16, and it's at about 28 minutes and 20 seconds in the video where I talk about my finished wedding dress when I finished it at the time. And then there are some wedding photos on episode 17 and episode 18 at the very ends of the podcast, so the last sort of 30 seconds or so. So I will leave links to those in the description bar down below if you want to see some photographs. So first thing that I would have changed about making my wedding dress is that I would have made sure that when I did my twirl that I actually made it in the fabric in the same thickness as I did my final one in, because I used quite a thick sort of wedding satin to do the bodice, which was then had an overlay of tulle over the top, but then it was also lined inside as well. So when I did my twirls, I just did them in quite a fine cotton, and actually when I'd made the final one, it was slightly tighter on the bust, which was a bit annoying. So make sure that you allow for that increase in thickness if you're using different materials for your final item. I probably would have drafted the whole pattern from scratch if I'd have known then what I know now, but I was following a Vogue pattern at the time, and that's sort of as I modified it to as close to my perfect wedding dress as I could. But now I would have probably drafted it from scratch and just had it so much better. But you learn, don't you? You learn. So the hem on my wedding dress, I didn't stabilise it with horsehair, which, if you don't know about dressmaking at all, horsehair is like a stabilising material. It's nothing to do with actual horsehair anymore. It might have been years ago when it was first used, but it's basically a strip of fabric that stiffens the edge of the skirt at the bottom so that it gives a nice clean edge, and I didn't use that, so it doesn't come out as nice and clean as I wanted it to. So I definitely use horsehair. And I would also do a full length twirl, because I only did a shorter knee length version just to check the fit of the body and everything. And actually I found that the way the skirt of the dress laid, it was designed for a big poofy underskirt that was a lot bigger than the one I wanted underneath it. I just thought, oh, it'd be fine, I'll just have a smaller one. And actually it was more of a slightly tulip shape, so the seams sort of, the way it laid, it sort of, the seams went inwards, if that makes sense. So I would have made modifications to the seams if I'd have realised how the whole thing was going to look when it was finished. So those are the main things that I would have changed, but basically I would have done the whole thing completely differently. And I think I would have done more of the tulle on the skirt as well to make it a bit more floaty. But I was worried about layering tulle over tulle with being able to see the overlock seams underneath, so I just chickened out of that and just did an overlay on the whole dress. But it was reasonably okay in the end, and it was a lot cheaper than buying one from a wedding dress shop. I think the one I tried, I did be cheeky and I went to the wedding dress shop and I tried some wedding dresses on, and I saw one and I was like, yes, this is really nice, and it was about £2,500. And I thought, it just seems ridiculous spending all that money on a dress that I'm going to wear for one day. So in the end, I think all the materials that I paid for my wedding dress come to £400, but I did overspend on the, I think the satin I bought too much, and I also bought too much tulle as well. So it could have cost me probably about £350 for the whole dress. So it is much cheaper than buying one from a wedding dress shop. But obviously a little bit more stressful having to fit it all yourself. I also made 2 of the bridesmaid dresses as well, and I made modifications to one of the suits that one of the little boys was wearing, my little nephew. And there were so many things that I did myself. I probably wouldn't have done quite as much myself if I did it all over again, or if, at least I'd have let myself have more time to do it. But I'm quite pleased with how it turned out in the end. It was okay. So that was my question from Katie. I'm sorry it took me so long to answer it, and I'm sorry I didn't get it from the attic either. Long story short, it's right at the back of the attic, and I've got loads of quilt holding frames all stored in the attic because I'm the chair of the local quilt group, and it's impossible to get to those at the back of the attic at the moment, so I'll just have to leave it up there for now. But hopefully you'll be able to pop back to episode 16 where I talk about my dress in more detail, but hopefully you understand the modifications that I'm trying to explain to you that I'd make if I made it again. So my next question is from Sarah, and Sarah was asking me, do I have any tips on caking yarn from a skein? So when you've got a skein, it looks something like this. I would then just unravel it as carefully as you can, because you don't want the loops to be in the wrong direction. First thing I do is just go to where each of the ties are and just make sure that none of the strands of the yarn are sort of going in the wrong direction. They're all placed in the right direction as they're tied, if that makes sense. So let me just put a bit in the wrong direction so you can see. So I've now got this little piece of yarn here in the wrong direction, so I then need to make that go in the right direction so that basically this tie is right over the top of all the yarn, so it's all going in the right direction. because if you've got one strand or a bunch of strands that's going in the wrong direction, you're going to get in a tangle. So what I do is go to each of the ties, just make sure that the yarn is all going in the right direction, and I do that for all the ties. Normally for a 100 gram skein there's about 3 ties on the yarn I dye anyway, and I would then use a swift to hold that out so that you won't get tangled up, and then I'd carefully pull the knot where it's attached to the yarn. It's taking care not to cut any of the other yarn. One of the ties will have several strands from it, and this one is basically where the start and the finish of the yarn are. So if you cut that one the last and then take one of those strands and start caking it up on a ball winder. If you haven't got a ball winder, you can put this on the back of a chair or around something, or get your husband or wife or partner to hold it out like this and carefully move their hands as the person's winding it by hand. But it is very, very useful to have a swift and a ball winder. I have a wooden one at the moment. I have had one of the cheap metal ones that you can get from eBay before, but I used it so much I thought I'd upgrade. But to be honest, the metal ones are pretty good. I have a sheepies, or however you pronounce it, wooden one at the moment, which looks like this. But basically that just holds the yarn out so that you're not tangling the yarn. And I have a sheepies ball winder as well, which is buried under a load of yarn over there, so I'm not going to show you that, but I will put a link to the 2 new wooden sheepies ball winder and swift that I have, and also the cheaper older versions that I have as well, which to be honest, they're pretty good. They're just not quite as fancy, I suppose. So there we go. It's just a case of just making sure that you've got all that yarn going in the right direction, because effectively if it's all been twisted up, there is a likelihood that 1 or 2 of the strands might have been put to the wrong side when you've opened it up like this. So I hope that helps, Sarah. I have had a couple of people ask me about this as well, so maybe I should make it into like a little mini tutorial. So there we are. I have one last question. Well, it's 2 parts really, this one, and this is from Joe. So Joe was asking, when I'm washing handmade garments, like sewn garments, how do I do it? So I tend to, anything with sequins on it, it will always be hand washed, or anything that's very precious, to be honest. But most of the time my standard go-to for washing clothes, like jerseys and jeans and cottons and everything, 30 degrees on the machine. And then I do not ever put clothes in the dryer, because I feel like it reduces their lifespan. Some fabrics are fine in the dryer, but I just don't like, I think it reduces their lifespan anyway. So I do not put clothes in the dryer. I only put sheets and towels, which probably reduces their life. But I do like my towels to be nice and fluffy. But anyway, that's another story. So don't put things in the dryer if you're worried about them deteriorating. I don't think you're supposed to put anything that's got like elastane or anything stretchy in the dryer, and I don't think you're supposed to put jeans in the dryer as well. Do not put jeans in the dryer. I don't think it's good for them at all. I always thought you were, but then I read somewhere that you weren't, so not that I ever put them in there anyway. Anyway, stop waffling, Ellie. That's what I do to wash my clothes. The second part of Joe's question was, how do I prepare and sew drapey fabrics? Drapey fabrics can be a right old pain, especially if it's like a viscose jersey like this top here. You have to be very, very careful. So number 1 is, if you're stitching with a very drapey fabric, it's best to start away from the edge of the work, because it will suck all the material down the hole of the sewing machine and you will just get a big mess, and sometimes you can't get it out. It could be an absolute nightmare. One thing you can do is, if it's still doing that, is to use very thin tissue paper as you're stitching, so it gives it a little bit of stability and helps you sew. Obviously your needles will get blunter quicker, but if it reduces the headache of having big masses of fabric going down the stitch plate into the stitch plate, not good. It's always good to ensure that you've got the correct needle that you're using for your fabrics as well. I tend to use a Microtex needle for most things, apart from jersey, where I tend to use, like if it's a single jersey or a double jersey, I tend to use a ballpoint needle. But I do tend to use microtex needles for most things actually. Anything that is quite soft and silky, I think microtex tends to work quite well with those. I don't tend to buy universal needles anymore. I feel that the microtex are a better quality. So in terms of woven fabrics that are very drapey, you quite often have to stay stitch around the neckline, and instead of doing that, actually, sort of like for a very drapey viscose, woven viscose, they have like a tape that you can iron on with a stabilising bit of cotton that actually runs through it. I got some from Guthrie and Garni, and I think it's made by Prim. I'll pop a link to that in the description bar down below. So rather than having to stitch quite close to the edge of the neckline, using this tape and carefully ironing it on, I find that's quite useful as well. So that's sort of related to sort of preparing and sewing with the drapey fabrics. I also find, especially if it's a jersey fabric, that actually stitching on an overlocker is much easier than stitching on a standard machine for a very drapey viscose jersey fabric. So that's a good recommendation as well. If you are having a massive difficulty with your sewing machine, try the overlocker. One thing that I did used to do on my standard sewing machine when I didn't have my overlocker is I actually bought a single hole stitch plate. So rather than having a stitch plate with a sort of, not a rectangle, but like a sausage shaped hole for the needle to go through, for if you then do zigzag stitch, you've got room for it to go either side. But this stitch plate having just a smaller hole, so it's only really good for if you're doing a straightish stitch. The lightning stitch is fine with the single hole stitch plate as well, so that stops the fabric having as much chance to go down the hole, having a smaller hole in your stitch plate. So that is a good tip. But I do tend to use my overlocker a lot more for the drapey jersey, viscose jerseys now, so rather than using the small hole stitch plate, but it definitely does work. I think that's all the tips I can think of off the top of my head. If you can think of any tips as well, I'd love to hear from them in the comments down below. So that's all my Ask Me Anything questions. I may have a few more on the Ask Me Anything thread, but I haven't checked it today because I'd already got those ones that I needed to address today. But I will address any further questions on next week's episode. But last of all, I have the shop update section, and I have got quite a lot to show you this time. So I have two new prints that I've got, bags that I've made. So I have this gorgeous succulent print, and I've just pinned the little lavender sachet that comes with it on the side. And I have the zipped version, and they're all boxed bottomed. Just open that out so that you can see. So they're boxed bottomed the side, and that's a zipped one. This is a medium sized bag, but I am going to be offering a smaller one and a larger one as well. On the website, there's a little video in the bottom of the description of different print, but you can see the three sizes compared to each other. So this is the drawstring version. Again, it's got the same boxed bottom at the bottom, and then you've got the drawstring at the top. So it looks something like that when it's drawn together. Obviously there's nothing in it at the moment, but with these ones you can at least get 4 skeins in them, plenty of room. And in the description of each of the listings it tells you the exact measurements of each of the 3 sizes that I offer. Again, these 2 are medium ones, but I will be offering the small and the large as well. But a lot of the bags I make them to order anyway, so I just make the medium ones for the pictures in the description, and then I will make the other ones to order. So as always, I like to have all the accessories, don't I? So I have the Notions pouch to go with it, that's got white lining as well, and the succulent print is absolutely gorgeous. I have actually decided to do 2 sizes of DPN case. So this size here is for the 15cm or 6-inch needles, which are the standard sort of DPNs that I use. But if you like to use the longer ones, which are 8 inches, or if you're using the higher flyers, this is the perfect size. So that says for an 8-inch or 20.5 3 centimetre needle, but it's 8 inch in an 8-inch needle will fit inside here with a little bit of extra room. So those are lined in white, and they have got my stamp on as well. So that's those 2 different sizes. I have some scissor cases which button up at the front. If you do want a popper instead of a button, I'm happy to do that. And lastly, I have the circular needle cases, and I have a little video on how to use these just at the top of the screen there, and I'll leave a link in the description bar. But basically you just pop your needles in there, and then it rolls up, and then you have the elastic loops around the button to keep it closed, so it keeps your circular needles safe. But a much better demonstration in the video that I've linked up the top. Second fabric I've got to show you is a rose fabric, and again I've got the 2 different versions, the zipped version and the drawstring, and I love the lining fabric of this. It is a duck egg blue in there with a beautiful print on it, and I thought that that went wonderfully with this rose print. And then I've got the contrast bottom. I didn't actually mention, did I, on the green bottom of these as well is made from a brushed cotton, so then really nice and soft. But I thought the slightly darker colour would be good if you're popping your bag down onto the table and it won't pick up the dirt so much, especially if it's white. I thought the darker bottom would be ideal. So we have the zipped version, box bottom, and both of these have nice big pockets as well. They all have 2 nice big pockets at the side. My stamp, they're all box bottom. Like I say, these are medium size as well, but I do a small and a larger size that you can pre-order. And the drawstring looks like that. I think there is very slightly more room in the zipped for the same size, because obviously you're not losing that area at the top there. When this is drawn in, that's still usable when it's zipped, but obviously you don't want to put the yarn too close to the zip because you might get it caught. So it's personal preference really. Again, I have the accessories that go with it. I have the little notions pouch. They're all lined with the duck egg blue lining with a little pattern with the roses on the outside. Again, I have the 2 sizes in the DPN cases for 6-inch needles or 8-inch needles, or 15cm and 20.3cm needles. I have the scissor cases, and with the scissor cases you also have the option of purchasing scissors as well. And there are 4 different types of scissors that I sell. I do find these really handy. I have a notions pouch and a scissor case next to me, next to the sofa, so that I've got easy access to scissors and all sorts of bits and bobs. I also have the circular needle case in the floral print fabric as well, and I will put the link up in the top screen if you want to follow that, and in the description bar down below as well. So I have all those new products going to be going in the shop. I have some new yarns as well. So last week I did show you that I was going to be introducing this new colourway. That's Morning is Broken, and it'll be available as a sock set with this purple, because I thought that that was quite nice with the rest of the colours as well. But also because I was in love with all the colours in this, I thought, well, why not bring out a mini set that's got all those tones in at the same time. So in the main yarn of Morning is Broken, it's a natural base with a little bit of all these colours on, and I thought it would be nice to have a sort of tonals mini set with all those colours together. So we have 2 different shades of turquoise, a pink, a dark blue, a beigey brown, and the purple. This is actually the same purple as the mini. And I thought as well that those might be nice to knit the 6 Wives shawl by Potter and Bloom, because obviously those colours are all reflected in the main skein as well, and that requires a mini set and a full skein. So this yarn is available as a single skein on its own if you want it, or on all the other bases that I sell in my shop as well. But again, if you want some sort of spring-like minis and you just want to treat yourself, they're all tonals. I thought that might be a little bit of a change. So there we go, and they're both called Morning Has Broken. This one is the Morning Has Broken mini set, and this is the Morning Has Broken main colourway. And I just thought it'd be nice to have something that would all definitely go together really nicely. So there we go, a bit of a closer look there. Right, so I think that's all the things that I've got in the shop for this week as well. All I wanted to say as well is that the yarn clubs are still available for April until the 2nd of April, and they will be shipped on the 16th of April or before. So if you do want one, make sure you purchase it on the 2nd of April because it will be taken down after then. The last thing I wanted to say is that I am doing a newsletter now. Quite a few of you are already signed up to it already, and you can easily unsubscribe if you don't want to have it anymore. But if you go to the website and then scroll down to the bottom of any of the pages, there's a little bar on the bottom right, and if you pop your email address there, you can sign up for the newsletter. And I'm basically just sending an email out whenever I have a shop update with something new coming in or some news I want to let you know. So I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!